Good morning, everybody, and greetings and welcome to the 35th Historic Calgary Week. My name is Walt DeBoni, and I would like to thank you for coming to the Cosmos to Culture event here at the wonderful Contemporary Calgary. We'd like to begin by acknowledging the land we're on as being the traditional territory of the Treaty 7 First Nations and home of the Métis Districts 5 and 6. We acknowledge that we are all treaty people, sharing the benefits we derive from the land and the obligation for taking care of it for future generations. Historic Calgary Week is a program of the Chinook Country Historical Society, a chapter of the Historical Society of Alberta. Brochures for the Chinook Country Fall and Winter program are available from our memberships, from our volunteers, waving frantically from the various parts of the building. And they also have membership application forms. Please consider becoming a member. Member get certain privileges, such as signing up for events for Historic Calgary Week before the general public. A couple of our events filled up in the first couple of days, so that is an advantage. And it also enables us to bring these kind of programs to the public every year, so please consider that. Now please take note of our sponsors, partners, and supporters, which are listed in our program. Their contribution has been essential in bringing Historic Calgary Week to you. And I'd very much like to thank Contemporary Calgary for the opportunity to use this wonderful facility for this event. Now, we're not taking donations this year. However, we do appreciate any support you can give us. And please go to our website and or the membership form to see the various ways you may contribute. Now I'd like to introduce our presenters for this event. First, I'd like to introduce David Leinster, CEO of Contemporary Calgary. He's a man with strong vision, creative mindset, and a focus on community, collaboration, and partnership. To give one example, is the collaborative presentation of the Sound Atlas Festival of New Music, two important art forms sharing a vision and a venue. Now, David was named to the Avenue magazine's Top 40 Under 40 in 2022. I'm not sure if he's still under 40, but he's close enough. Before heading up Contemporary Calgary, he was a manager, enterprise brand, and creative services at Enbridge. During this time, he was involved in the submission of the expression of interest that resulted in the agreement with the City of Calgary in the creation of Contemporary Calgary in 2018 and its opening in 2020. Now we're here today to hear about the past of this building and the future. There's no truth to the rumor that David's going to divert the Bow River so he can fly fish from his front door. Because I understand that David has a few favorite F words: father of four, fly fishing, food, and family. Our other presenter is Jonny Hehr. He's a partner of the Calgary architectural firm GGA. He completed his undergrad in industrial design from the Emily Carr Institute of Art and Design and followed that up with a master's degree in architecture from the University of Calgary. Also, he was a licensed aircraft mechanic prior to becoming an architect. That's quite a diverse difference there. And he's one of the few people that came from Kelowna to Calgary as opposed to the other way around. Why architecture? He approaches seeing how people interact with the spaces we create and how we can evoke joy and wonder in some of these spaces. Sounds like GGA is a perfect fit to lead Contemporary Calgary into its next chapter. David, over to you.
That 4 F word thing is from my Instagram. I didn't think people looked at my Instagram, so that's really great. Well, thanks so much, Walt, and good morning. How's everybody doing? It's Wednesday, hump day. We have 109 registrants, so I think my curatorial team who's at the back, I think we should move all of our public programs to Wednesdays at 11:30. Thank you for the land acknowledgement and also for the invitation today, Walt. But there's actually one other acknowledgement I wanted to provide today, and it's a personal one. So today is my 20th wedding anniversary. And thank you. With Colleen, some of you in the room know her. She's the quiet backbone of the work that I do here at the gallery. And so the father of four in Fly Fish Again family is very present today. So I would have been remiss not to include that history, although it is not quite as ancient as the Centennial Planetariums. This presentation is going to be, I hope, fun. So my role is I'm going to give a remark to really just set the stage for thinking about the history, the various histories of this building. And then Jonny is going to join me on stage, and he's going to take us through the fun part of the presentation, which is to talk about how it all might transition and change. So for those of you, well, you've done an introduction, but my name is David, and I'm the CEO, and I've been the CEO of Contemporary Calgary since 2018. And my connection to this building and the dream that is now becoming a reality, it actually goes back quite a lot further than my formal employment. So one of the first jobs that I had in Calgary in 2005 when I moved here and got married, if you're doing the math, was to measure all of the signage at the TELUS World of Science and the Creative Kids Museum, which was about to arrive. So I came with my tape measure, and I had to go all around this insane building, going through all of its curved concrete forms, and never imagining that one day I'd be asked to help lead a vision with this incredible team. And so I'd like to, before I begin, offer a public service announcement in that I'm not an architectural historian, and many of you in this room may know a lot more than I do about some of the past, but I am a very passionate student of this building and even more passionate steward for its future. But before we get into the presentation, I wanted to do a little bit of audience participation, and I do this at some of my public programs. So I'm curious to know how many of you in the audience, this is your first time in this building as an art gallery. So you haven't been here since 2020 when we moved in, by way of show of hands. Okay, maybe about a quarter of the room. Interesting. Shame on all of you. We have been open, we have been programming, memberships are $2 a month. Just teasing, welcome. How many of you have been to the planetarium in one of its past machinations as a planetarium or a science center? Okay, many more, maybe 70%, 60%. And then how many of you have never ever been in this building? This is your first day. 1, 2, 3, okay. So this is great and validates that some of these presentations are really great to understand that there are many different histories that people have with this building. And so welcome. I apologize how difficult it was to find where you're now seated, but we'll get to that a little bit later. I'm just going to make sure that I'm going through this. So the original part of this building was the Centennial Planetarium, and this is Calgary's official submission to the centennial projects of the country. There were more than 800 projects right across the country, and this was ours. This picture you see here is, I think, it's typically called a sod turning, except there's not a lot of sod in December, which is interesting. But the building opened its doors on July 1st, 1967, and it was designed by Macmillan, Long and Associates, who submitted a winning bid. Now, I think I have a slide here of some images, but importantly, the official cost estimate for the Centennial Planetarium project. And it was, compared to our Class 3 estimate that we've just done on our transformation project, it makes me a little bit weak in the knees. I can assure you that our project is not $1,210,000. But many of you are familiar with Macmillan, Long and Associates. Has anybody heard that name in the audience? A couple. So Jack Long, Hugh Macmillan, and their associates were the folks that were tasked with advancing this vision. But this is a guy that nobody's heard about. His name is Joseph Shimwell. And I thought it was fitting in the context of Historic Calgary Week, Walt, to bring Joseph's names forward. And so Joseph was one of the principal designers and architects on the project, but he had moved to Canada and to Calgary from the United States, and he didn't quite yet have his stamps and his certifications. So he wasn't able to be sort of formally recognized as part of the design of this project. Now, in 2019, Joseph came, and keeping in mind, that's about the time when we moved into the building, but Joseph came into the building with his wife Janet on what he was calling his farewell tour. He was battling with some terminal illness and thought that he wanted to go and see all of the different places that he had designed from coast to coast to coast. And about 3 months, 4 months after he came, he sent me a package in the mail, and it's actually over there, and you can flip through it at the end of today's discussion. But he hand drew a series of sketches as to how he would think that you could transform this amazing place into a center for art, having been the architect who had a leading hand in its original vision. I have some images of these. So he sketched all of these in his 90s and sent me a very detailed and a beautiful note assuring me that he wasn't asking me to seriously consider any of his ideas. But isn't that just a lovely story about the power of this place and the focus by which people think about it as part of their collective memory and identity? And so I have decided that I'd like to dedicate the remarks that I'm giving today in his honor and for his family, as this was a project that he was most proud of and all of the things that he did right here in Calgary. All right, so the vision for the planetarium didn't come from City Hall. It didn't come from a cultural agency such as us. It came from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada and its Calgary chapter, a group of citizen dreamers who believed Calgary's official Centennial project should be a planetarium, a place of discovery and awe, and their ambition created what has become one of Calgary's and Canada's most iconic brutalist structures. But this space is one that morphs, but it always serves. So the planetarium was originally imagined as a place where people would come to be lifted, not just metaphorically, but also literally. If you look at this past image, you didn't come to the building on the ground floor. That was a parking lot. You were invited to come up this beautiful concrete stairwell and to enter the building on the second level, the original entrance to the building here. And Jack Long often said that if you're coming to see the heavens and the stars, why on earth would you come through the main floor? And so this plus 15 utopian future, this sort of moment of vision, the race to space, all the optimism that was in our community is embodied in this building. And lifted metaphorically and physically, but you ascended up this grand stair, you entered onto the second floor, you got to go into the Celestial Theater and see a Zeiss projector and a 13-meter dome. There was an observatory deck, there was a gallery, oddly enough, featuring a visual trip around the solar system. In fact, the architects wanted to lift you up so much that this public observatory, which is just on the east side of the building, was originally contemplated to be quite a lot taller. And this was the biggest fight of the architectural plan. There's lots of documentation in the history of this project that talked about the observatory tower that was 4 or 5 times the height that it is now. It's on the 3rd floor of this building. And many of you haven't seen this sort of articulation. And so this observatory deck is actually right here. Before the Science Center area of the building began to evolve, lots of histories here. Between 1971 and 1985, it housed what would later become the Hangar Flight Museum, which is over by the airport. Its aviation collection was proudly displayed right here on the lawns of Contemporary Calgary. And it's just incredible to go. I've had a lot of fun this past couple of weeks pulling all these images, just to think about just how many different civic partners have actually called this place or our lawn their home. Before the Science Center, well, maybe we'll talk a little bit about this particular room. This was called the Star Lecture Theater, and it has transformed so many times. It has been a lecture theater. It was then transformed into a recital and concert hall space. It later evolved to be the Pallades Theater. You were looking in the same direction. See the curtain? where they performed the Mousetrap the first year and then did it 17 consecutive years. And of course, they went on to be Vertigo Theatre, who operates under the Calgary Tower. More histories. The same theater has worn all these hats. This very room you're sitting in became Wowtown. You can see the original wood that is surrounding you here today in this theater to bring about new programming when the Science Center took occupancy of this space. If you can believe it or not, this is where you're currently sitting. Then all of this was ripped out and turned into an exhibition hall space. This is also the room that you're sitting in, and this is the fake captain of the Titanic, an interactive exhibition, the very last exhibition in this space. And while it has had all of these different hats, it's also embodying the spirit that it's always had. And so I'll read you this excerpt from the first annual report of the Centennial Planetarium. In the modern and colorful lecture theater, 265 people can comfortably be accommodated. An audio-visual system, stage with adjustable lights, plus other equipment, allows this theater to be used for a variety of purposes. They had no idea. One of the earliest events was the appearance of Mrs. Sumiko Takashima from Tokushima, Japan, a presentation of traditional Japanese music, vocal and instrumental. The annual report goes on and on to mention all of the different types of programming that happened here in 1967. It includes lectures from universities, community groups and members of the community, cultural organizations, as well as, of course, scientists. The programming mandate of this space, which is now the Heather Edwards Theatre, is really about honoring that legacy. When we came across all of these documents and the original blueprints when we recently renovated this to an exact replica of its 1967 form, we wanted it to embody from a programming sense everything about that has been a part of this space from the beginning. And so, of course, Contemporary Calgary programs this with contemporary art films during its hours during the day, but in the evening, this space is supporting the broad community, and through Heather's support, arts organizations and arts adjacent partner, they do not pay rent to use this theater. They have to clean it, though. In 1984, this building became Calgary's Science Center, the Alberta Science Center of Calgary, which was later rebranded the TELUS World of Science. This is the place where field trips and curiosity and hands-on learning, the place where Wowtown captured kids' imaginations, and when that wasn't enough, they built a new space on the north side of the parking lot. It's always been challenging our community, and it has always been serving it. But eventually, this building became too small for the growing demands that were placed on it. And just as important, it had suffered through time, through different interventions that weren't always necessarily kind, but they may have been affordable and supporting the organization at the time. There were many, many different interventions, a C-train expansion that cut off literally the front door of the building, that beautiful staircase. But it should be known that the original line of the blue line was going to go right through the center of the building, and it was on the demolition slate. And so thanks to probably people who were in this room who raised some concerns, the building was saved and the C-train was realigned. So lest you think C-train realignments are a new thing, they actually go back quite a long time. So this all led towards the Science Center closing its doors in 2011, and the building closed. A fence went up around it, and the future was uncertain, and the actual reality of that is the fence stayed up until 2019, when we moved in. So enter Contemporary Calgary. I'd like to talk a little bit about the organization that is Contemporary Calgary, where it came from, and why this space. In 2013, the city issued an expression of interest, inviting community groups and nonprofit organizations and partners to present imagination for this building. And at the time, there were 3 organizations who came together. So the Art Gallery of Calgary, which used to operate on Stephen Avenue, the Museum of Contemporary Art Calgary, which operated out of the Triangle Gallery at City Hall, and the Institute for Modern and Contemporary Art, who didn't operate a gallery, but was a group in the community who was tasked with thinking about and the answer to the question, why does Calgary not have a contemporary museum of significant scale? We were, at the time, the only city in North America with a population over 1 million that couldn't take the types of shows that travel to major national museums and galleries. And that's not to say anything about the amazing constellation of art in our community we are blessed with. Commercial galleries, the wonderful Esker Foundation, the Glenbow Museum's collection, etc. But there wasn't a gallery that did what we do, which is focus on the art of our times. And so we submitted a unified proposal. And I always smile thinking about how it began, not in a boardroom, not at a community event, but literally in the wine cellar of Le Chaumière on 17th Avenue, which also has a fence around it. Think Sopranos, think family-style dinner. There were perhaps a few egos in the room. And lucky me, I was there. I think I was 26. But I worked for a man named Darcy Levesque, who's a visionary man in this community. And he and I wrote many different proposals for many different spaces. The Contemporary Calgary Art Terminal in Ramsey, the former TELUS building, National Galleries West in Olympic Plaza. There are a lot of books in my office, and I'd be happy to share them with you. But we tried many, many times, but this really fit for size. We submitted a unified proposal. You can see it on the table, and I have a copy here that you can flip through later. What is really, I think, poignant about this is that it's kind of an unprecedented union of three arts organizations to check all of their mandates at the door and think about what we could build together, a new kind of destination for contemporary art, a place really that embraced this building's weirdness and its wonder and its memory, and that is the very thing that I think sets us apart. And so here's some images of us sketching on the floor plans of this building. We had a few months to craft a very thoughtful proposal to the City of Calgary. Carol Ryder, our board chair, is going to kill me for this photo. But Mary Rose, Chathan Lasham, and Darcy, these people are all still heavily involved in the organization. And so what I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about now is the curatorial vision broadly, but about a building that shapes the art. And so at Contemporary Calgary, we don't see this building as a container for art. We see it, I think, very much as like a collaborator. And its unconventional forms, its brutalist spirit, its planetary references, all of these things inform our program and how we curate. And we have no interest in covering up the past. In fact, we want to lean into it. So our curatorial strategy is really built in a belief that this building's scientific legacy, its history as a place of discovery and knowledge, should not be forgotten, but rather become an important framework, one of the important frameworks through which we invite people into our conversations. And this idea is central to our current work. So is Mona here? I gotta block my eyes. Oh, there she is. So everyone look at Mona, she's waving. There's Mona, and Muriel wave, and Brendan. These are members of our curatorial team. And Mona is a new Calgarian, and it's not your first time in the building, I don't think. But one of the things that we were really interested in is, and with respect to Mona's leadership, is that her articulation of the vision and the programming was deeply site-specific, and one that doesn't just tolerate this building's legacy, but celebrates and activates it. So at the same time, we also need to be honest with ourselves about the building's limitations. And so it presents some very real challenges. The envelope is aging and insufficient. Our shipping and receiving access is awkward and difficult to navigate. It's almost non-existent. The surrounding urban context, especially since the loss of the original front entrance during C-train construction, is fragmented and it's confusing. Wayfinding is difficult, right? Was it hard to get here this morning? We're still working out key amenities you'd expect of a gallery where you could spend 10 hours easily reviewing the programming that's currently on display. You need to have a place to eat, a place to rest, a place to imagine and connect. My kids won't come, there's no food. But these challenges don't diminish our ambition. They actually help define it. So we're not interested in standardizing this place. We're not interested in forcing it to be things that it can't. We're interested in making it work, and intelligently, creatively, and because we believe that it's well worth the effort. The architecture, it's not incidental. It is really the catalyst. So you can see this in the way that we're programming the observatory gallery as a social observatory, kind of poetically turning the telescopes that used to be up there to shine a light on current issues in our communities. You see that in the work that's happening here in the Heather Edwards Theatre, restored not just as a performance space, but as a platform for dialogue and partnership. So in shaping this next chapter, we've really been guided by a simple but powerful philosophy that the best way to honor this building's past is to allow it to evolve with intention. And Bruce Kuwabara with KPMB, who's on our design team, he often says, and some of you may have heard him say this project is one part archaeology, let's uncover its concrete bones, one part plastic surgery, removing which no longer belongs, and one part new construction, making a space for what comes next. For us, stewardship means not rushing to erase past layers, but understanding them. And it means treating this building not as a blank slate, but as something more. Where every new intervention respects what came before, we're not trying to make it something it's not. We're trying to let it fully become what it's always had the potential to be. So this building in all its complexity has held so much for this community. It served scientists, it served artists, children, families. It's seen periods of glory and moments of downright neglect. Brutalism goes through these waves, doesn't it? We love it, we don't. But we'd like to thank the Academy for the film The Brutalist, which has totally put us on a new trajectory just in time for our capital campaign. And now we have the extraordinary opportunity to carry it forward with care and imagination, with the belief that great architecture carries memory, it carries meaning and responsibility, which brings us to the future. So this is where my part is over, and we're going to invite Jonny to join me on stage to talk about the work ahead, the floor plans, the renderings, the thoughtful expansion plans, and I'm thrilled that Jonny's here to talk about this. He and his team at GGA-Architecture, as well as our team at KPMB Architecture in Toronto, have been with us every step of the way. And I remember talking about the fact that one of our architects went to Emily Carr. That can't be a bad thing. But it's been a really collaborative project. We're really proud about where it's landed. And so he's going to join us on stage. And so thanks for letting us share a little bit about this building's past and the intention about where it's going to be going. And on to the next stage. Welcome, Jonny. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, that's a hard act to follow. David has a way with words, and thank you to everybody for coming here on a Wednesday. David beat me to it, but I do want to acknowledge that I'm one person that's part of a greater team. We work closely with lots of people in our groups. I'm a privilege of being a partner at GGA-Architecture, but also we're working with KPMB. And since day one, I still remember walking to the interview with Bruce, who I had just met prior to that, and now kind of the 6 years of getting to know the rest of the team and the amount of time that we've spent in rooms talking about this building. And really, you can see it in the way that David talks about it. We all have an incredible reverence for this building. We respect it, we honor it, and we kind of bear the weight of being the next stewards of what happens to this building. Because as you can see through David's presentation, there's been an evolution. It started with an intention, and the landscape around it has changed. The culture that is around it has changed, and everything that's happening within this building has changed. So with this building, it's almost, a lot of heritage is about keeping things the same, but this building really has evolved through its life as it's been known within Calgary and within the architectural community. Brutalism really is one of the intentions of brutalism was to not have reference to anything in the past. Bruce Kuwabara of KPMB often speaks of this building as a bit of an introvert, and now it's our turn to turn it into an extrovert. It's an introvert that was actually meant to look into the skies and look beyond the world that we live in. And when you walk around this building and experience it from the inside with the canted walls and the almost tent-like structure of the atrium, the amount of bold moves that were made architecturally at that time is something that you can't help but just be in awe of and want to help celebrate that. And David had mentioned that we often refer to this as a bit of an archaeological dig. We're trying to pull back and expose and celebrate this building, and also create opportunities to experience this building in ways that haven't been done before, which I think is fitting in the evolution of this building. You saw how the front door has been cut off. We had to experience how do we address all the edges. So I'll flip through. Sure. So this is just a quick diagram to kind of show you how the tracks really did cut off that front entrance. And as it did, and actually it's quite a beautiful way that this building hangs over the tracks. You would never be able to build that close. In fact, you'll see, I can show you exactly how close we can build to the tracks. But you can't build as close as it is right now. And then there was an evolution to this building where things were added on. And again, it's not that they were added on to make and that we are peeling them off because they are additions that didn't honor the building. It's more about, you'll see that we're taking things away to replace them with others, but it is an evolution of how we treat this building. I remember David calling me one day and saying that he was expecting a donor, but the donor got lost and couldn't find the front door. And we thought that was only fitting, that they were coming to donate to the project, but actually couldn't find the front door to give the money to the project.
We found them, don't worry.
They tracked him down. So really, the edges of this project was something that we had to address immediately. We walked with the team the first time we came as a team to the building. We got off the C train and we were walking towards the building. And we immediately started talking about how do you experience this building. And really the edges have come into it. There was a image earlier which showed this beautiful green landscape around the building. And there's moments of that are left, but really most of it has been paved over and streets have gotten wider and the train has come through. So really one of our first aspects was create a front door, create a living room for the neighborhood, start to be a bit more generous in what we were offering to the neighborhood, and also start to make the building more accessible. One of our big moves that we are looking to do is actually creating a flat floor on the lower floor. which, will allow people to experience this building without having to maybe run into some of the barriers they were faced with previously. I didn't really connect the dots until I was reminded of my own history, that I guess if we still had airplanes here, I could help out with that. Yeah, interesting to see the edges, the track that used to be beside it. Look how skinny the 6th is heading out of downtown, and actually how close it is to the river too. So it's kind of, we've been fortunate in working with the city of Calgary, which we should acknowledge that their team there has been, really open to ideas. And when we started this project, we started with an intent and with a program. And I think we often joke that we've never been so happy that a project wasn't funded. Because our original intent, I'll show it here, this was what came out of 2019 and early parts of 2020, was quite a large expansion. And it was before David and his team really had opportunity to understand how the building operated. You guys had thrown one great party by then, which now there's been a whole bunch of great parties. But we went into this project originally with great intentions as a team, and we had a execution of quite a large program. And we ended up here with all good intentions of this beautiful new gallery that sat along the river and, showed art to all those that passed by, and connected back through a +15 back into the building. And it met all the requirements that we were trying to do. However, time is a great thing, and in this project, it revealed new opportunities. So our project has the benefit of really being a bookend to a whole bunch of cultural institutions within the city of Calgary. If we look to the East Village and the library, and then you kind of make your way down the C-train line, there's quite a significant number of institutions and different things that you can experience along the way. And we being sort of the bookend on the west side to all these institutions. This was a party sketch. In architecture language, it's a doodle that we often refer back to, and within this doodle is a whole bunch of ideas. And the idea that we wanted to come to the table with a fresh look as to how we can really connect this building on a planar level as well as vertically. And you can kind of see through that sketch with all these arrows that this building has an incredible central atrium. And how do we make that central atrium a bit of a pinwheel to experience different parts of this building? Just programmatically having an area that you come back to, and also an area that you first experience when you come in. So this was our party sketch, which started the process of, we'll call it version 2 of our project. You can see how that sketch starts to manifest itself, and apologies if I keep moving this microphone. Starts to manifest itself in the new plan. And I don't know is there a pointer on this? The red button. So you can see quite clearly the original dome structure and the theater that we're in here. And then this circular stairwell, some of you may have taken that stair to come up when you arrived. This is a new addition off of the east side of the building, and then a new addition that actually encompasses the whole existing loading dock area and really starts to address the new condition of the train. The train is actually something that we wanted to celebrate. And again, it's creating new ways to experience this building. So our new additions took everything that we had done previously on the north side of the building and have pushed it to the south side of the building. And really to help us do a few things. One is to return this building back to a landscape that it was meant to be within, to create a buffer between the building and the road network, to create public space and really start to bring that river's edge closer to the front door of this building. We wanted to, push the parking to the back, but where it currently is, but also we had to address the fact that people are still going to drive to this building, and we needed an opportunity to connect the east to the west. So whether or not you arrive by train or pedestrian, you enter into a new beautiful glass pavilion, which I'll show you some images of. But you also have the opportunity to walk directly through the new building to the west side. So if you're coming from the west, you come into this central piece, and that's that central kind of pinwheel, for lack of better terms, where you can start to navigate, because David mentioned it, and I'm sure many of you experienced it today. This building can be somewhat disorienting. You come in and you come up this ramp, and before you know it, you don't know which way is north and which way is south. And you don't have any visual references because of the lack of windows. So we're really looking at an opportunity to how to orient you within the existing building as well as the new. This also gave us back the opportunity of celebrating the views of the original building. Our previous iteration created a new building in front of this building. Our new iteration looks to really give back those views. We've removed the Flanagan Gallery. Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong button. We removed the Flanagan Gallery, which currently exists right down here, which is the converted, TELUS space, which I think is quite a successful gallery, maybe too successful in how good of it functions as a gallery, and allowed this new space, which is going to be a public space filled with programming, which will help complement everything that's inside of Contemporary, but also to be a great neighbor and create that public institution and public space that the west end of Calgary really needs as an anchor. You can see our new addition come along the south edge and start to integrate and knit its way into the existing building, but also in a contrasting way. And that's where the introvert-extrovert starts to come and play its way into materiality. All of our new additions are primarily glass, so that you can see the previous building enter and exit these glass walls. We tried to honor the existing geometry by canting some of our glass walls, and you'll see that in some of the images and some of the fly-throughs. I'll continue to pass through this pretty quickly. I know we're probably running out of time, but here is our new atrium I spoke of. We have a great cafe on the second floor, which I'll highlight. We've pulled everything back from the round concrete vertical circulation, and that will actually be the backdrop to the new reception desk. This is all lockers for day use. We have a great kind of kitchen space so that we can cater the rooftop, which we'll show you here as well. A primary anchor to this whole institution is education. And so this is going to be a great education area where you're going to have a series of school buses arriving every day to experience this building and bring that next generation of people through the building. And then we have a functioning loading dock where you can fit a 53-foot trailer and a 26-foot box truck beside it. All the while along the edge of the tracks. So this is our new entry pavilion, as we've kind of coined it along the way. You can see that contrasting material of the glazed facade with the warm wood as a ceiling. Again, playing off of maybe some of brutalist can be interpreted as a bit harsh. So we wanted to create that warmth with the materiality of the ceiling, but also create that transparency and allow people to see into this building. This area right now is thought of as a very public space, like that you wouldn't have to pay to experience that space, and the potentially the cafe as well. So really that neighborhood anchor and living room. This is a view directly adjacent to those education spaces. And this is where you start to see through the building. And we have a couple other views where you'll start to experience the adjacency of the dome and those concrete canted walls. At the second floor, we have the cafe, which actually has a little poke-out moment where you can experience that train passing by. And other seating areas here. On this level is really a primary circulation. We're looking at ways that we can return the dome back to a flat floor, which there's a great animation in here that we'll get to in a bit of how it can be programmed. Some new Class A gallery spaces, which have incredible north-facing glazing, which we have some great renders to give you some visuals on that. There's a back of house that has to serve this building, and it has to be very functional, because without it being functional, it can be very limiting to the type of shows that they can bring in. So we have a massive elevator that runs all floors and can service this building, and they also have great mechanical requirements so that David can successfully house the artwork in very strict kind of mechanical requirements for that, which mechanical requirements and 1 foot thick concrete walls don't really jive very well. Yeah, they're not friends. This is that view that we were talking about, looking from the west, glazing coming into the Class A gallery. So again, as a good neighbor in a public building, you could stand outside of this building and start to experience what's happening on the inside, which I think has always been the struggle of this building in the state that it's in, is you don't really know what's happening inside until you come in, and then, you know, kind of the joy and wonder can take over from there. This is that view from the second floor as you're walking into those galleries. And this is where I was speaking to earlier about having opportunities to experience this building in ways that it's never been done before. So having, you know, being able to see those walls up close at different elevations, and have the dome being present as you walk around and see different floors. As we move up, there's a weird little intersection of a floor, which actually has some much needed admin space that we're repurposing in the previous iterations, and we're kind of gained back a whole bunch of space up here that used to be circulation for stairs that will no longer be there. And then we have the observatory, which the observatory we did a renovation on about a year ago now, yeah, and turned that observatory into a functioning gallery space, which this is an image of one of the installations in that. So it's a multimedia gallery space. For a space that is as small as it has a tremendous amount of projectors. But this was really a way to honor this space as well. We had to raise the roof of this area. We had to address a lot of challenges with the envelope to create a space that could house art, and really create more opportunity for David and his team to program this space. And then we couldn't do without a rooftop. This is unencumbered views of the river and really a place for David to throw really good parties, and the city to throw really good parties, and everybody, to come and rent this place out, because galleries aren't cheap to run. But this space really is going to be a space like no other, and the images that you'll see, again, having opportunity to revere this building, look back upon this building, and make it part of the experience from the outside and the inside. Do you want to walk through or talk a little bit to this?
Sure. This is a cutaway animation with thanks to Victoria, who I think is in the audience somewhere. But to give you a sense of the interconnectivity of all the different gallery spaces. And so in the basement layer, what we call the Grotto Gallery, that's currently a space that is used both for temporary partnership exhibitions currently. So Exposure Photography Festival is a partner of ours. We have done the People's Portrait Prize. There will be programming in this space. And so our renovation aspects of our project will see that transformed into a dedicated gallery space entirely. It also masquerades as an event space now, but the point of the rooftop event center is to divorce and separate those revenue generating activities and ways in which we can connect into the community with our art spaces. And then on either side of the dome, you see the Ring Gallery, which we invite you to experience today. Our show presence is up, but it circumnavigates the dome structure and has always been a gallery. All of the walls on the inside of that space are the original walls from 1967. And so that will continue as a gallery space. I will acknowledge Chris Cran, Caroline Monet, and Sabrina Ratte, who are the artists that are being featured in these renderings. But the dome currently and historically has been a projection dome, and so a number of projectors massed and together. And we will turn this into Canada's first LED dome, leveraging the technology, the same technology that is in projects like Sphere Las Vegas, which I'm sure you've seen or been to, but micro-tiled LED. And the reason for that is to have abundant flexibility to work and collaborate with artists to envision new works and new spaces. And there is a dome in Montreal called Société des Arts Technologiques. They do very musical-based, mathematical, very fun programming. There's a dome in Berlin that has some art programming. This will be the only dome that we know of in the world that is dedicated as a contemporary art space for living and working artists. And so when we talk about Calgary being a global city of choice, and when we talk about the aspirations of being an organization that focuses on local, national, and international art, this is a space that will put Calgary on a map differently in terms of contemporary art and conversations. And so we're very excited. We've had many, many artist tours to talk about the potential of this space, and it is a sandbox that, that most artists in the community cannot wait for it to be available. We get a lot of, when is this happening? We'd really like this to happen soon. Yeah, but you can just see the interconnection of all the different types of art experiences that will be available in this building.
I think there's one more here. This will hopefully connect all the dots of everything that we just chatted about, and it's just a little fly-through.
Yeah, it just runs through so you can get a sense of how you navigate the building. There's a couple areas that you might need to close your eyes for. It moves pretty quick, but
This is coming in from the west and down past the Education Center. This is that new reception area. And the stairs heading up to the second floor. The new entry pavilion, which you'll kind of see it all come together here. Now we get to go up to the cafe, which will be a great spot to have a coffee or a martini. fact, you might feel like that after a martini. And the atrium, which is just an incredible space that I don't think there's another space like it.
You'll note that the addition is peeled away from the building rather than bolted directly onto it, and that was a sort of deliberate way of putting an addition on without intervening, and actually at the core of the values and the vision of this work that Jonny and his team are doing is to really honor the building and put ourselves in dialogue with it. And so naturally then there are architectural decisions that have been made that allow us to really treat it like a jewel, like it's in a little jewel box or a display case. This is the part that makes me sick. Okay,
Yeah.
there. Now we're on the event center. We are full of emails and requests of people who want to be a part of this incredibly unique. Like, unique is the currency of events. It's easy to have an event in a square box, but there will be few spaces in Calgary to have weddings and receptions that will be able to put into dialogue this historical narrative and really think about how we connect with the river. There's a lot of buildings in Calgary, I don't know if you find, where they build right near the river and there's no way to see it, and it feels really silly. And then from a renovation aspect, the video is almost complete, but as you go into the subterranean dome gallery space, that will be full of art and art activations. And then immediately above it, although there will be, this is magic, you can't actually go through the roof, but into a dome space, which will be a flat floor immersive experience, returning it back to the way it was in 1967. So the dome as it is now is up 3 stairs on a steel structure and a seating section that is not original to the building. It was always on the main concrete floor. The seats were on the main level, and the dome enveloped you. And it's changed over time to build an IMAX theater and other things, but this project really is about going backward and then building it forward. So I think, Jonny,
Yeah,
I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you, guys.
Next slide, yeah. Thank you.
That was wonderful. I think we have time for a few questions. Is there any? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, can you just use the microphone?
Oh,
It's
I'm
being
sorry,
handed
thank
to you
you.
right there. Yeah.
Thank you. What is the timeline for completion of this new space?
Yeah, great question. So we're in detailed design. Our project is submitted to the City of Calgary as a development permit. We expect to be starting construction in December 2026, January 2027, and its completion in grand opening is October 29th. Sorry, not 29th, how specific? October of 2029. October 29th, 2029. But importantly, it's important to highlight that we actually won't close during the renovation. So the Flanagan Family Gallery, which is currently on the north side of the property, will remain open for almost the entire duration of construction, save about 10, 11 months. That's only 10, 11 months of the entire 3.5-year construction project we will be forced to leave, but we will have collaborative programming in the Edison Center. I know Mona and her team are thinking about collaborative projects in the community, because I think it's, this building was closed for a very long time, and so we're limiting the amount of time that it can't be accessed by the public. So continue to buy your memberships. We will be around. But yeah, that's the timeline. Thanks for the question.
Any more questions?
I can see the purpose of the glass, to be able to see the river and the rest of it, but I'm thinking about how long glass lasted on the Peace Bridge before vandals destroyed it. And so how are you going to deal with that?
It's a great question. We have a security team who circumnavigates this building at all hours of the day. And so we have a dedicated team that is sort of managing those issues already. There is glass in many aspects of this building and some of the new additions, and we have historically had some challenges with glass being broken, some vandalism that does happen. The connection to that is really just presence. And so since we've had dedicated full-time 24-hour security, we've actually had no window breaks, we've had no window vandalizing. And so it's a great question, though, because, glass isn't cheap, and especially glass that is triple or quadruple planed UV glass. It's really not cheap. But we believe so strongly that the interventions need to create that warmth and that invitation to a building that's been quite opaque and kind of it's kind of intimidating. And so those decisions for us had to really think about making a welcoming space and being bold with how we do that.
Yeah. Well said. And I think one of the key points to that, as you mentioned, is the presence of people. The presence of people and the ability actually that glass has for people to look out of the building as well as look in. We build a lot of glass buildings in downtown scenarios, and really when buildings also start to become such a part of a community, the community respects the building back. And I think the amount of public space that's going to be offered and the amount of public offerings just from a programming perspective will start to build that, that respect and reverence, even down to people who might throw a rock at something.
There was another question behind there.
Yeah. On the platform there, Jonny, as well as in the center aisle.
Who wants to go first?
Thank you. Looking at the rendering in the forefront, there's a piece of art. Is that Family of Man that's going to be relocated?
Yes, that is the Brotherhood of Mankind, and so it's a really kind of fun story. So my first meeting with one of my board members, and I would like to acknowledge that I see, like Romper Room, I see Susan from the board, and is that Carolyn? Is Carolyn here? Okay, no, Carolyn has a doppelganger at the back, but I'd like to acknowledge Susan Thomas, who's a member of our board of directors, who are volunteers, and Hoda Ahmadi is there. Hi, Hoda. So the question of Brotherhood of Mankind. So Dr. John Lacey, some of you know Dr. John Lacey, he sat me down. He said, David, I'm from the UK. And did you know that in Expo 67 in the British Pavilion, there was a sculpture called the Brotherhood of Mankind, and it is now in Calgary. It was donated by the Cummings family, and it should be on our property. So this is my first meeting. Okay, Dr. John. And so I made a series of inquiries with the city of Calgary, and they are tied to their current location on the lands of the Calgary Board of Education. But for a sculpture that was built in 1967 and a building that is built in 1967, that's purpose and intent is really about art, and the focus of creating public art space and a sculpture garden reinvigorated that conversation. And so to the city's credit, they have sent a letter of support. We're doing engineering studies right now on the condition of the sculptures so that they can move. And so that's really exciting. So that's it's going to happen. There will be a public consultation phrase, so you all show up to that and say nice things. But what a wonderful legacy and a history in Calgary that can sort of breathe a new life. And that's a building and a site that, as you know, has been vacant for a long time. And part of the challenge with developing that site is the conditions associated with that artwork that's on the site. And so it's not very often that you have a win and a win and a win, so that, maybe Bow Valley can expand to that space, the art can move in a purposeful way, and be stewarded and maintained and cared for. So yeah, it's not a done deal, but I'm getting tremendous support from the city, and yeah, it's a done deal, I think. Is the city here? Good.
I think that's a winner.
And there was some questions, Jonny, up here on the, yeah.
I guess it's a question for both of you, and this is a huge project, but if you had to pick one piece, room, or bit of what is about to be built that you are most excited for, I'm curious what that would be.
Oh my gosh, that's like picking your favorite child. This is dangerous territory.
That's a great question. I think maybe this is a cop-out. The education center, I think, is probably the part that I'm most excited about. I have 4 kids as well. Apparently you have to have 4 kids to sit up here. And yeah, just creating that next generation of people that love art and how it can impact their lives, I think is probably the most important part for me.
So I'm going to do what I do to my kids. So they're like, you're my favorite for this reason. Okay, so I think that you're terrible. Okay, I want to say 2 things. The entrance pavilion is really important. The entrance pavilion is really important because the most densely populated neighborhood in the entire city of Calgary is across the street. And some of you may live across the street. The Sidex building is being built. There are 3 towers proposed, 2 are built. Eau Claire. And if you live downtown and you live in the downtown west, you recognize that you need spaces like this closer by. You need restaurants, cafes, you need retail, you need a place to gather, you need a place to congregate. And that there are challenges within all of these buildings about creating community. You know, like the lobbies are small and everybody's on their floor. And so what we hear from folks in the Downtown West Community Association and talking with neighbors is that this is the type of gesture that gives them hope for like this neighborhood that they live in and call home. And so that's really important because if we think about the values of being welcoming and inclusive as an organization, and that really is really broadly defined, then the threshold by somebody's curiosity to come to the building can just be coffee to start. And to welcome people into this space and to make them feel like they're in a very different type of experience. I mean, some people don't know it. I've never been to a contemporary art gallery. What does it mean? You know, am I invited? Do I have to have an art degree? No. And so these welcoming gestures, I think, break down barriers. And so I'm really excited for what that will do. Programmatically, you're like not allowed to pick the dome. It's everyone's favorite. You know, they get all the attention. And so I think what we're calling the Riverview Gallery, the small gallery that faces the park, for me is like a beautiful gesture curatorially to think about its connection to community, that you can see the river, that the community can see the art is like an embodiment of our values. And so I have to pick 2. Sorry.
Question over here.
Hello.
Oh, sorry.
So my question is regarding the migrating birds and the glass. I love especially the migrating birds, and I know a lot of people have concern, especially with those. Are you going to incorporate bird-friendly glass into the glass?
No, I'm just joking.
Yes, the City of Calgary has bird-friendly design standards, which we have to abide by when we're designing. And I will say that for the north facing glass, which is in the Riverview Gallery, it's canted on an angle, which actually helps with birds to see it because it starts to reflect different parts. It's not just a straight plane. And then also on the pavilion, we have a series of sunshades that wrap around the east and the south side of that glass. So it will be very bird friendly. Yeah.
And then Johnny over here, Michael has a question.
Good morning. How much gallery space do you currently have, and what's going to be the net gain after this?
Oh, wow. The numbers I'll be difficult to sort of provide. I'm not brushed up on that. But one of the things that, how I like to articulate that is that a lot of organizations talk about gallery space conventionally, like there's this gallery and it's 7,000 square feet, et cetera. But why we were so captivated with Mona's presentation when we were searching internationally for a chief curator was she said there's 65,000 square feet of gallery space. And I thought that was such a brilliant way of thinking about this building because we see the whole place as a gallery. And so the way that you experience art in a contemporary way doesn't have to be conventional. In fact, it often isn't. And so site-specific projects, into more traditional gallery spaces are all part of why we feel that we'll differentiate what we're doing here as compared to other organizations. But to maybe try and articulate this a little bit better, the Flanagan Family Gallery is not being deleted and forgotten. It's being moved into the new gallery space because that temporary facility is at the end of its useful life. That's approximately 7,000 square foot, double high ceiling Class A gallery space. Adjacent to it is about a 2,000 to 3,000 square foot gallery space. The grotto is currently 10,000 square feet. It will drop down to about 8,000 square feet because we'll frame in one section. Hopefully somebody has a calculator going. We have, we are gaining gallery space. The dome, for example, I don't know how to do the square foot of a circle. Somebody smarter than I am can do that, but it's a difficult building to measure the square footage. But we are growing in our gallery space, probably like 15-20%, but by a much more significant margin when we consider the art experiences as you circumnavigate this building are also important interventions. I hope that's a sufficient answer.
And the class of gallery spaces too.
Yeah, so we have
Yeah.
a mix of class of gallery space now. The Flanagan Gallery is a Class A space. The others are not, and so it's not that much of a limitation with respect to contemporary programming and the work that we're doing. We maintain very stable humidity, which stability is the gold standard. And so the building is very responsive. All of the mechanical systems are new as of 2018 or refurbished. But we also recognize programmatically that we have the need for some more conventional spaces and then how they relate to other non-conventional space. It's a great question. And I will go do my homework after this.
You kind of just answered my question. So, how much net increase in gallery space?
Yeah. Like operationally, it seems like a lot, but it's actually not that big of an extension. We already program the dome. We'll just do it differently with new technology. We already program the Flanagan Gallery. It's going to be programmed differently. There are some net new gallery spaces that we're really excited about to be dedicated gallery spaces, like the grotto. It's used 20% of the time as a gallery space. It will be 100% of the time. And so it feels like a comfortable evolution. And we purposely didn't build the project that we could have. Like, we can all dream really big and have $750 million projects, except we don't need it. And the site needed the space to be given in a more public realm way too. And so we feel like it's the right type of evolution for not just now, but really the future as we see it.
We have to have a couple more questions. There's one down here.
Hi, to make it a bit more user-friendly, could you please consider putting in taller seating in the open areas?
Great suggestion. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll increase it from currently 0 seating in the open areas, which is a limitation, right? Right now there are some free-ranging couches and things like that, but that's another part of the renovation, right, is to consider that this should be a space to gather. And as Jonny mentioned, from the entrance pavilion up into the central atrium just outside of this theater, all of those spaces will not be the barrier of paying to be there. The requirement of a ticket or a membership would be to come in and watch the films go into the gallery spaces. And so we really live and breathe this idea of accessibility and what does that mean? And so you'll be able to go through lots of this building without even having a membership. And then we know that we'll suck you all in. When you get up to the second floor, you won't be able to resist the program. At the back and...
Has the requirements of the Look Gala been kind of designed into the building? Have you
No.
looked at it and thought, okay, we're going to move this here, do this there?
Yeah.
Is it such a big thing?
For those of you who haven't been here and don't know, we have an annual fundraising event that is very well regarded, and it's very successful. Again, one of the most successful fundraising events in the country as it relates to charitable galas like that. We raised almost 1.3 million in one evening, thanks to you all who were here.
That's the party I kept referencing.
That's the party you kept referencing. and its origin in history, since this is Historic Calgary Week, is that the city let us squat in the building in 2014 to throw an event to talk about what it could be to have this building as an art gallery. And it was a really wonderful event. It had a factory party. It won the Globe and Mail Party of the Year. And so its legacy lives large. But it's a really fun celebration of art and artists. But the look gala will always happen, Michael, but it will shift and change a little bit, right? So the grotto space will no longer be where the dinner can happen because we have a rooftop event center. And so it will never go away, but it will morph and adapt and continue to get better and continue to grow in various ways. We now have an amazing outdoor space as an example. So, and hold your calendars. It's not been released, but it's on May 2nd this year, next year.
One last question up here.
Okay, sorry, but there are three. Because just the story of the history when it was Triangle Gallery, it was a lot of glass, and a lot of institutions didn't want to send some pieces for that. And you already mentioned that it's going to be UV, but it will be any way to. It's one UV, but the amount of light of the day. So it will be any way to regulate that light coming to the gallery. To when you were doing, it's going to be a lot of galleries, and I don't know, you consider more storage because it's going to be a lot of crates and big crates. So I think it was a little, and parking. I don't know. Are you considering that it's going to be more galleries? Are going to be a lot more people coming? It will be enough parking for all that people?
Okay, so as a person with ADHD, a three-part question. I love you, Amena. Number one is the glazing. So you'll note in the, maybe Jonny, if you can go back to the west pavilion view.
Yeah.
Some of the gallery spaces are open, and some of them, if you go back, I think two more, keep going, 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 keep going. This one, you'll note that where you can see the exhibition of Chris Cran's heads from the 90s, that's a gallery inside of a gallery. So that largest space is a Class A gallery that has zero natural light. It is a fully contained white cube, effectively. And so we recognize the issues and the limitations with respect to natural light, but also keeping in mind that for that middle pane of glass, that's going to be very expensive glass. And so thinking about strategies with respect to heat gain, talking about strategies with respect to UV penetration, these things can be managed, but they have increased the budget on glass quite significantly. So we understand the conservation requirements. They're very stringent. We live within them. So it's just you have to go a lot further than most conventional spaces have with single or double pane, non-UV coated or protected glass that get into issues with conservation and with institutions that loan artwork. So those will be incorporated directly into the plan. I think parking was last. So let's
crate
do it.
storage.
Yeah, let's do it like Star Wars. You know, you don't have to go in order. But parking, the entrance to the building, it's kind of illegal to turn into this building and leave it. In many ways, you can't turn in off of 11th Street. You're not supposed to leave on 6th Avenue, and so that's been a challenge of the building. And so the current entrance off of 6th on the corner and the entrance into the parking lot on 11th will go away. And what we've proposed to the City of Calgary is a new intersection with lights on 6th Avenue to accommodate two things. One, a little bit more sense of how you get into the building, but to match the city's goal of slowing down this very dangerous road, which has turned into a highway within our city. And so there's been a number of near misses and collisions at the intersection where the gallery meets Bow Trail. And so we've been also listening to the city's challenges of how they are thinking about slowing this down as part of an area redevelopment plan for what the future of the West Village will look like. But there are, you can't see them now, about 100 or so stalls. And is that enough? I don't know, but one of the things that you can sense is that currently this is a commuting parking lot. So when you all came here, I bet you had to park all the way at the back where the parking lot is currently conceived. And so as it relates to the parking of this facility, we will have the amount of parking that we typically need for the gallery. The parking lot is owned by the City of Calgary, so if they would like to choose to excavate and put different floors of parking there, those are conversations that, you know, we would be interested in understanding where they would like to invest in those things. But we think it's going to be sufficient and also pushing forward on a city that, has a train station across the street. We've built a very generous lay-by condition on 11th Street for ride sharing and all those types of things. You have to kind of lead that way. I think Calgarians, we need to beat ourselves up sometimes and say, like, I don't actually need to drive, but we've just become so used to it. So, and then crate storage. There is a basement we didn't show you, Jimena. And so it's a really uninteresting part of our presentation, but perhaps very interesting to you and our curatorial team. So there's a basement for crate storage. There is also a tremendous amount of back of house storage where you see the loading docks come. So all on the south facade of the building is all back of house, clean space, crate storage, workshop, etc. So I always laugh that this project is like we did a renovation at our house because the front door had a wiggly handle and there were some shingles that we needed to replace. Then we put an addition on the house. This is like, we don't have a loading dock. Let's do a $140 million renovation and expansion. But we've really addressed, in some board meetings, this maybe predates Susan and Hoda, but I called this once the loading dock project because how we accept art at the building is a 53-foot trailer will come into our parking lot. We will then go bum to bum with it with a 5-ton truck, an air-conditioned, art truck of a smaller scale, and offload it in stages, drive that smaller truck with multi-trips back to the existing loading dock, and it's annoying. And so every time we are out doing this escapade, we take lots of photos and we send them to the board of directors and we say, the loading dock project is very important. But it is really important because that's how we steward the assets. It's how we steward the work. It's how we make it not so hard on our teams. It's how we move artwork through this building, which is really challenging because it's made of concrete. And it wasn't designed to think about conventional crate storage of contemporary art objects. So we're dealing with lots of your wish list. Jimena?
Great. Thank you, David and Jonny. Wonderful 60 years of history and hopefully 60 years of future. And we very much appreciate your being with us here today. Thanks everybody for coming, and please plan on seeing some of the other Historic Calgary Week events. There's still about another 35 or 40 to go yet, so lots to choose from.
And Walt, just quickly before you do, I have a set of architectural blueprints that I brought from the 1990s iteration. So if there are architects or engineers in the room and you'd be interested in putting on a pair of gloves and flipping through very fragile architectural plans, you can do that. I'll put them on the stage. I also have Joseph Shimwell's hand-drawn sketches, the ones he sent me in the mail. And lastly, there's a book actually that was produced by Contemporary Calgary called Utopia Factory. It's an amazing publication that talks about the history of the Centennial Planetarium. It's available in our bookstore, and for all of you lovely people, it'll be 50% off today. So if you want to remember this talk and have something that digs in a little bit deeper to this building's history than we covered today, then make sure you stop in downstairs. Thanks.
Thank you.